What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are installing this AEM 340 liter per hour fuel pump into the Subaru BRZ. Let's go. Alright guys, welcome back to the garage. As you can see, it's a little bit messy. I've got the K24 and the CD009, basically prepping those up to get ready for the engine swap. But what we're focusing on today is the fuel pump upgrade, and we are going to be using this AEM 340 liter per hour fuel pump that is also E85 compatible. But before we jump right into it, I want to say that if you find this video helpful, make sure to leave it a thumbs up down below. And if you want to follow the K24 swap build for my Subaru BRZ, hit that subscribe button and make sure you got your notifications turned on. Now, let's jump into it. First, let's cover the tools you're going to need, starting with a hammer or a mallet, or in my case, a large wrench since I couldn't find my hammer, a 10mm socket, a variety of sizes of flathead screwdrivers, and a pair of needle nose pliers. Since we'll be in contact with gasoline, I recommend a pair of gloves and a hefty amount of paper towels, in addition to a cutting tool such as a Dremel or an angle grinder. Let's start by opening the gas cap to relieve any internal pressure while we're working on the interior of the car. Now let's get the rear driver's side seat out of the way by using a 10mm socket to remove this one bolt. What I've done is just put a little cardboard box underneath just to prop this up and hold it out of the way so we can get to the fuel pump, which is right under this little plate. Using a flathead screwdriver, we will pry open the top plate that encloses the gas tank and the fuel pump gasket. It's held together with this sticky black sealant. Use that flathead again to pry off this electrical connector. I knew I had a pretty full tank, so I wanted to put down some paper towels to catch any excess fuel that would leak out when I disconnected the fuel line. It was at this moment that I realized I should probably be wearing gloves for this, so I grabbed a pair and made sure that this external fuel line was mostly empty before moving on. Now it's important to take note of where these blue marks are on this fuel cover lid. When you go to tighten this back down, you want to make sure that these lines all line back up to where they were before you removed it. I also realized that I should take the time to clean off this fuel cover lid. We want to make sure that we don't introduce any debris or contaminant into the tank, because that'll just get sucked up and sent right into the engine. With the cover off, now we can remove the fuel pump basket. Be careful not to damage the arm of the level float, and you'll probably have to let this drain out any residual fuel. Then remove this final fuel line connected to the bottom of the basket. So now we have the fuel pump hanger completely out. I'm going to place this in a 5-gallon bucket so I can get it out of the car. We'll take it over to the workbench and we will get the new fuel pump installed. Alright, so now that we have the fuel pump basket completely out of the car, let's take a look at what we're going to be using for our replacement. So this is the AEM 340 liter per hour E85 compatible fuel pump. So this will do 340 liters per hour at 40 PSI. And if you want to run E85, you can do that. If you want to run standard gas, you can do that. This is a pretty well-rounded fuel pump, especially for the price. I'll have a link down in the description if you guys want to check this one out. But the materials that this one come with include a fuel sock, which actually this one that it comes with is just a little bit too tall for the standard basket without modifying the basket. And the little wiring harness that it comes with, you would have to either solder in yourself. So if you want to go that route, you can. But what we're going to be doing is actually using a Deechworks adapter kit. This is number 9-1010. What this includes is a fuel sock, which is perfectly compatible with the stock basket without modifying it. We have a little plug and play harness, which means you just plug this into the new fuel pump and you plug it back into the connector inside the basket and you're good to go. You don't have to cut, you don't have to solder, you don't have to do anything, so that's great. And it also comes with, well, most importantly, it comes with a sticker, so that's awesome. It comes with 3 different O-rings as well as some lubricant to get it on there, but because we still have some gasoline sort of residual on this, I don't think we're necessarily gonna need the lube, but it's there if you need it. So let's go ahead, jump in, start disassembling this basket and get to work. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is get this top section off of the main body of the basket. And we do that by pressing down and actually removing this small little detent pin right here on the bottom of this rod. And you can do that with a pair of needle nose pliers. Just pull it straight off. Comes off just like that. And what you may find now is that the cables that are in here are actually kind of in the way, so we can try to fish those out just to be able to remove this top section here from the lower section. Remove your spring. Now there are 3 main clips on this that actually hold the fuel pump assembly inside of the basket. So you can use just a flathead screwdriver and pry these little clips up and we'll pull this out. Should come right out. And there you go. So on this assembly, the blue and black wire connector is actually what we're going to be replacing this piece with. So we can go ahead and take this off just with a flathead screwdriver. Pry up gently and give it a little wiggle. All right, so if we look at the main body of this that holds the fuel pump in here, we actually need to remove the fuel sock and fuel pressure regulator sort of top cap piece. And so there's gonna be 5 of these little clips all the way around. So you may need to use multiple little flathead screwdrivers to kind of hold them all open while you try and get this little top piece off, and then we can remove the fuel pump itself. So now we've exposed our stock fuel pump. We can go on the other side where the electrical connector was, but we can just push on this and get it to squeeze right out. And there you go. So there is your stock BRZ fuel pump. Now, normally attached to this, you have this white little plastic grommet here. So we'll want to keep this piece. And so the other thing is that the O-ring that sits at the bottom of this that holds this piece in tends to get stuck at the bottom, so you can either use, again, a small flathead, or if you have a pick with a little 90-degree hook on the end, you can use that to get it out too. As you guys can tell, I've got some paper towels on top of a paper sheet down on my workbench so I don't fully soak everything in gasoline, which it looks like I've actually done anyway, so that's unfortunate. All right, so to prep our new fuel pump to go in, we're going to use this white retainer sleeve that we got off the stock fuel pump. We're going to drop it onto our new fuel pump, and now we're going to grab 2 O-rings from the Deechworks kit. And the reason we need 2 is that this neck on the aftermarket fuel pump is just a little bit taller than the stock one. So we'll get our 2 O-rings put on there, and now we can drop this right back in where the stock one came out of. And of course, making sure that your electrical connector lines up properly. So now that we have the fuel pump in place, we are going to take the fuel sock from the Deechworks kit and just a little bit of this included lubricant, and we're going to apply this to the inside of this port. That lines up with the inlet port on the fuel pump, and the center right here actually lines up with the point, so that helps you get an idea of what kind of orientation this needs to have. Make sure to squeeze that nice and tight. You want to make sure that that's flush. So now we'll take this whole assembly and put it to the side, and we'll take a look at the stock fuel sock. Now this is that sort of 5-clip piece that went onto the top of the fuel pump assembly. So we don't need this little fuel sock anymore. However, we do need this section right here. This is what holds the fuel pressure regulator onto the basket. So what we need to do is cut right along this line. We don't need this whole upper piece, but we need to retain this bottom section with these two clips. Now, if you do have a Dremel, I highly recommend that you use that instead of an angle grinder, but at the time, I could not find any of the cutting wheels for my Dremel. All right, so this is really what you're looking for. Maybe a little bit rough here, sand that down if you really want to, but this is pretty much all you need, and this is just gonna go right on top of the fuel pressure regulator. All right, so now we can take our modified clip, place it right here on top of the fuel regulator, and we're going to just take this whole assembly and go right back down into the basket. Make sure that you line it up with where the clips, 1 clip, 2 clip, and 3 clips. We'll take the harness from our kit, from the Deechworks kit. We will take the black connector that goes to the fuel pump. Should clip right in, just like that. And then the gray end will connect up here. All right, now everything is installed and wired up. All you really have to do is just kind of finish putting this basket back together. And if you want to, you can reroute these lines exactly how they were previously. We put that back on here, drop everything down inside the basket, get all the lines up, and then we can get this back in place. And now while we hold this down, we can take this little retaining clip, put that guy right back down here into place. And now that everything's assembled, you can throw this thing back in your car and you're pretty much ready to go. To get this thing back into the tank, you'll connect this feed line to the bottom of the basket and then angle it down to get the float in without harassing it too much. Add on the green plastic gasket and the fuel cover lid, and now you'll get to screw this thing back in. With a mallet and a flathead, tighten the lid back down to the point where the blue marks line up with the points in the same spot as before you removed it. Reattach the fuel line and the electrical connector, and now you're good to put the metal cover back into place. You can replace this black sealant if you want to, but mine was still very sticky, so I didn't really feel the need to do so. And finally, you can get this seat put back into position by reinstalling that 10mm bolt that we removed earlier. And that is gonna wrap it up for the fuel pump upgrade. Now you can run a lot more fuel, and you can also run E85 if you choose to do so. If you found this video helpful, make sure you leave it a thumbs up down below. If you wanna see the build and you wanna follow my turbo K24 swap Subaru BRZ, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll see you guys on the next one.